And I thought I would come on a video and introduce myself. I am running for the HOA board, and I wanted to just introduce to you what radical transparency is. There's been a lot of discussion about that. I didn't expect it. I just want to share with you what my view of radical transparency is and what it isn't. And then you can certainly feel free to ask me any questions. I want to share a slide with you just to give you an idea because it is a business term that was coined about 10 years ago. And what it is basically, it was a term that was coined by Ray Dalio, and he's the author of a book called Principles. And basically, it's a formal management philosophy that was introduced back in 2017, and it has become the new standard term. It is what companies have been using for the last 10 years. And I made an assumption that people had heard this term before, and I was wrong about that, and that's fine. You may think about some of the great books in the past, Good to Great, or Who Moved My Cheese. This is one of the more modern books on philosophy, on a management philosophy about radical transparency. And so what he goes on to talk about is basically a few different things. Honest context. It's not just about giving outcomes to employees. They want to be part of the decision, and they want to have open discussions, open dialogues about why decisions were made and when were they made and how were they made and could they be included next time in the next decision. And so it's just a little bit about being more open than ever before. It doesn't mean anybody was hiding anything before, but it's just about being more open. It's about minimal gatekeeping. The less layers, the better. If you can eliminate any approvals or filtering before sharing, particularly, people want to have an open book conversation. They don't want to, basically have any illusion of secrets or anything like that. It's just about being an open book and sharing everything possible. And it's also great for historical purposes. If you can document everything, then it's easy to reference. And then it's about feedback. Feedback is great. We always want feedback, but it's about being direct, a little bit more direct than maybe what we're used to, and being respectful and timely. So if people can take good or bad answers, if it's about themselves, as long as it's presented in a fair and respectful way, and it's presented by the owner of those feelings and not just the messenger. I think that's the really key part, is having that open dialogue with the direct person that is willing to give you the feedback. And the last thing is about just being proactive and having that openness. And proactive, I put in caps as the key because it's about information is shared by default, not only when someone asks for it. And it doesn't mean that you have to go and seek the information. Proactive means you are actually pushing that communication out to them. So let me tell you what it's not. Radical transparency is not about blaming any kind of lack of integrity. The suggestion that I am radical, that it's radical, is because it's something new. It's something that hasn't been done before. For example, our minutes are summarized. I confirm with this, Monica, I confirm this with the board members. They do not cover every single thing in the minutes. It's just summarized. And so that's a little bit different than what I'm suggesting, in that we either transcribe notes or make sure that further discussion of who said what and who was involved in the decision is more documented. So it's not about lack of integrity. It also doesn't ignore your privacy boundaries. HOA boards do have executive sessions for a reason. There are private things that they need to discuss, and I'm not suggesting that those be exposed in any way whatsoever, and I fully respect that. It's also about brutal honesty, but not without empathy. If we have to communicate that somebody is not appropriate for a committee, or their time is up, whatever that looks like, just be honest. It just requires our board leaders to be honest about that situation to that person directly, and of course, ensure that there's empathy when appropriate. And then the final is no optics of secrecy. Nobody is suggesting that there is anything secret, but it's about the optics of secrecy. And this book came out of the idea that employees want to be involved openly. And if they just get summarized notes or get told this is the process without being involved in anything, then they make up their own stories. And so we saw this also with Brene Brown, has written many books, become a famous YouTuber. Uh, she's a doctorate professor out of the University of Houston that talks about transparency. And if we don't have transparency, then we tend to make up stories. And when we make up stories, that's when things happen. That's when all kinds of things can be misconstrued or misunderstood. And so it's about the optics of secrecy. If we can just not summarize things and just tell people like it is, then we have a lot less things to worry about. So that's just some brief things that I wanted to share with you about what it is and what it's not. And so just to give you some examples of things that I would suggest in looking at what can we do differently to bring that radical transparency. So as I said, not all notes are transcribed, and I would like to see a transcription of those notes. I would also like to see that in both the committee and the board meetings, and then those pushed out to our leaders or our board members, as well as our homeowners, and so that they can know what is going on at all times and what was discussed and what was the outcome of those discussions. Of course, having a Zoom meeting or anything that is in a way recorded and again pushed out to them. It's about being proactive and sending out those minutes to everyone instead of having to go dig for it or look in an app. If it takes more than 2 clicks, you lose people. So I like to push things out to people. If they don't want to read it, they don't want to read it, but at least they got it. I think all committee chairperson selections and their committee members changes and additions should be documented in the minutes. That is factual. You will go and see that that is not done in every single time. I have multiple examples of that. I'd be happy to share with you if you want to reach out to me. But that everything that is sent out to the homeowners is easily accessible, whether we send it out in a newsletter, an email, Stroll magazine, it doesn't really matter. We can send it out in all different ways, but nothing should require more than 2 clicks. And then we just want to think about any decisions made regarding anything related to a budget and why, and that's been documented for future historical purposes. Because, obviously board members are going to change over and that's not there, then it leaves for people to have to start all over again. And another thing that is not recorded is when you call in to Monica and you may have a question or a complaint about something that is not documented anywhere. It's not written anywhere. She will summarize if there are things that are common by homeowners and give them to the appropriate committee. But generally, it's not recorded of all these different things that people call in about, and it's not shared with the board members. I would love to see this documented in some type of a journal or forum. It'd be great if it was online. And then what was the result of that? And I'd like to see the committee chairperson really address those directly as opposed to coming through Monica. Monica is fantastic and she does a lot of work. I think we have a lot of committee members that want to do more. And so this is an opportunity for them to interact with our homeowners. So instead of just, having everything directed through her, let's get those directed through the committee chairpersons and those board liaisons. And that helps create that more open dialogue. And then just public acknowledgement of open committee chair people. Everybody says, oh, join a committee, join a committee. But then somebody goes and asks to join and it's full. And so multiple ones are full right now. And so where is this documented? If you go to find this, what is open or not open, you won't find it. I've looked everywhere and it's not there. So it's really just about more openness. That's what radical transparency is. So I hope that gives you a little insight into what it is. It is a standard business term. I'm at my office today and just thought I would share with you what that means. And if you have any comments about that or would like to discuss any of these points, you can go to my website, kathyhennessy.com, or feel free to call me at 214-725-0710. Thank you so much.